Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, Ms. Johns, Mr. Kumar was listening to your summary of what your agencies do, and it sounded to me like there might be some overlap between those two things. Ms. Johns, tell me what your agency does that Mr. Kumar's does not.
Congressman, our agency, as you know, we are the voice of small businesses in this, in the administration among Federal agencies, and so our entire focus is on small companies.
I understand, but in terms of helping them with exports, what do you do that's unique from what Mr. Kumar's organization does? We
do a number of things, but I certainly want to emphasize that we work closely with the Department of Commerce under the Trade Promotion Coordinating Council. Our administrator sits on the President's Economic Council. So we are involved in the cross-cutting Federal efforts to coordinate Federal resources to support exporting. What we do specifically, we have capital programs, we have counseling programs, and those areas of our agency's programmatic thrust are the primary ways that we support small businesses. For example, we are working, as I mentioned in my opening statement, on training more international trade counselors so that we have a network across the country available to small businesses. Any small business in our country is less than an hour's drive away from an SBA resource where they can get counseling for exporting. We have specific loan products that are available for them.
Let me stop you there, because the loan program was one thing I did hear that was different from what Mr. Kumar does. But what you just described is training counselors to help folks sort of get through the process of exporting, which is exactly what I heard from him. So, Mr. Kumar, maybe tell me, what am I missing here? Help me understand how the SBA's efforts to promote small business exports and the Department of Commerce efforts to do the same, how they are complementary and not duplicative.
Glad to, and thank you very much for that observation. Trade, any trade till it's consummated, is touched by a number of agencies, and indeed there are several things before you can consummate a trade. From identifying a customer, to finding the access for finance, to getting the right distributor. It's an entire chain. And how the two of us, or the two agencies, get contrasted is this. First, physical availability of finance is handled by them, but connecting customers who invariably, because we work in the communities. I mentioned the 109 offices we have across the United States. And we physically work with the businesses to connect them to the right resource. Second, we ensured this time through the National Export Strategy and the National Export Initiative that how do we leverage the combined resources for maximum benefit? In fact, that was something the President challenged us through the NEI. And what we did as a consequence is we realized that dealing with new-to-export companies, people who want to export for the first time, people who needed to go through an education, information, and a skills training program, was perhaps best leveraged through the SBA. On the other hand, dealing with the 280,000 current exporters, and one of the members' representatives mentioned that 58% of them only go to one market. We chose to concentrate on exporters currently going to some to take them to newer markets. So here was a classic example of looking at the entire supply chain, concentrating the efforts of one agency towards newer exporters, and concentrating the efforts and the abilities and the boots on the ground, as we call it, towards current exporters to take them to newer markets.
Let me cut you off there, Mr. Kumar. I'm sorry I only have a few minutes, but because I want to follow up on that point and ask Mr. Foster a question, aside from congratulating him on where he went to school. If I'm a farmer who is new to exporting, I want to get in the export business, do I go see you, Ms. Johns, or Mr. Kumar?
Indeed, in the U.S. government, there's vast resources across all the agencies. If you're a farmer, you have a number of options to get support. You can go to the U.S. government portal, usexport.gov, which will direct you to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You can go to your Department of Agriculture for the state, which will link you to our regional service provider that will help any small business in that region where our regional groups work. You can come to Washington, to FAS, USDA directly, again via the portal. And then I should say we're working now with our local Farm Service Agency offices and rural development offices across the country so that they know if any farmer were to walk in, any small business from a rural area were to walk in, they'd know where to go in the Department of Agriculture.
Thank you. I yield back my time. Thank you, folks.